Mohammed, your host for tonight. Thank you so much for tuning in and watching. We are here to discuss more current social issues. And tonight we have a really personal favorite of mine, a special guest, and we're going to be discussing the stigma around disability. I'd like to introduce my lovely guest for tonight. Assalamu alaikum. We have Syed Razavi.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam. Thank you so much for joining us again today. We also have Sayyida Masooma Zahra Shah. Assalamu alaikum, Sister Masooma. How are you?
It's a pleasure and an honor to be here, inshallah.
No, the pleasure's all mine. Thank you so much for joining us. I think this is an absolute, really difficult topic, and I know that especially coming from your own experience, it is something that I really feel really grateful for you to share your story, and hopefully inshallah we will have people have more understanding, information and awareness so that we can build bridges and have better connections regardless of the situations that we're facing. I'm going to start with you, Masooma. Tell me a little bit about your condition so that we can get into this quickly with regards to how to help each other to understand people in these kind of situations and how we can be more inviting and understanding.
Inshallah, yeah, definitely. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. We begin always in the name of God, the most beneficent, the most merciful. So my condition that I was born with is a genetic condition known as osteogenesis imperfecta. So for those people who hadn't come across this condition before, it's a condition that is that basically it affects the bones. So it's also known as brittle bone syndrome. So it means that someone like me, I can fracture pretty easily, and as well as being able to fracture my limbs really easily, I'm also pretty small in size. And there's then other symptoms such as sort of a low immune system or fatigue that also come into it. So it impacts everyday life a lot. It's not really a condition that doesn't affect one area of my life. It affects every single thing that I do every single day. But at the same time, it's alhamdulillah, I'm still very, very fortunate to be in the position I'm in and to be able to do the things that I'm able to do.
That's beautiful and lovely introduction there. Thank you so much for explaining your condition right now. But you look absolutely lovely tonight, I have to say, and you speak very well and clear. So I just hope that everyone who's listening really does pay attention with regards to the challenges that are faced today. And also we need to show more understanding and empathy. And this is a live call-in show. If you do want to call in, please do so. The number's at the bottom of your screen. I want to come to you, Syed. We do have this issue where we kind of brush things under the carpet when it comes to dealing with disability in the community, and especially when it is children. I've had many mums personally come to myself with issues, and they don't know how to approach the situation. They feel embarrassed, they don't want to be part of the community, or the community is sort of pushed sometimes to a corner where they are actually finding it very difficult to integrate normally. What is your thoughts on that?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. There is no doubt that in our society, in our community, people with disability have existed, and from the beginning of Islamic teachings, the Prophet and holy Imams have given instructions how to take care of each other in the society instead of ignoring, avoiding. We have to show our responsibility towards each other and help each other. Nobody's perfect. Some disabilities are not visible and hidden, and there are some disabilities that you can obviously see it. So who are we to claim that we are 100% perfect? Nobody's perfect, and we should all help each other and complete each other by assisting each other.
Yes, of course, absolutely. And that's also a great awareness and information there for everybody to remind ourselves and reflect. But coming back to you now, Sister Masooma, let's analyze, and I want to go straight into it with the reality, because you are the best person to speak of this. We all can say what we can say from an outside perspective, but you face the daily challenges, and you know of the daily challenges that are within the community or outside. And the fact that people may be ignoring you, staring at you, pitying you, these are things that happens. Or even when it comes to relationships, you're at that age right now where you will be even looking at that. That is also an issue. And the last thing I want to also mention before I bring it back to you is the fact that there is a common practice of marriages within cousins, which actually causes a lot of genetic disease and sort of disability as well. So talk me through your challenges and what is your reflections on what I've just said.
Yeah, so in terms of within the community, I've had interactions, and I'm not going to say that anyone means anything by these things, but you have, for example, people telling their children that you should be so grateful to Allah because you've been gifted, legs to walk, you've been gifted a sound body and a sound mind, and you should be really ungrateful, and then have this conversation right next to a disabled person, i.e. me. And I'm not trying to say that people shouldn't be grateful that they're maybe physically in a better condition than I am, but at the same time, there's at the same time it comes down to basically being respectful. You don't have to have this conversation with your child, however old they are, right here and now. You can have this conversation when you go home in the car. You can have it anywhere. It feels like pity at that point, that you're literally demonstrating to that child that this is the worst way you can be, basically, and you should be very thankful that you're not in that way. Or you have people, particularly the elderly, who will come up to me and say, inshallah, may you get shifa, maybe you recover. And I think the thing is, people have now, and for quite some time, they take disability and illness, and they think it's synonymous. They're interchangeable. If someone is disabled, it just means they're sick, where that's not always the case, because being disabled means that's just kind of how you're going to be for the rest of your life. Being sick, however, that's something that you can recover from. For example, like COVID-19, right? You can't call it a disability, it's a sickness. And it's something that, inshallah, anyone who does get will recover from. So it's kind of this way of people saying, oh, may you get shifa, may you recover. And you get to the point of wanting to say, well, I'm happy we're always taught that we should be happy in the way of God, in the will of God, whether God, the Almighty, wills for us. It's the best outcome for us, right? And I mean, and again, some people take this negatively when you label yourself even as a disabled person, or when you say that sort of, I'm not looking for a cure, I'm not looking for I'm not looking to recover. People take that very negatively. They take it in the way that you're sort of giving up hope on the chance of getting better, or you now has been like, you don't believe in God anymore, and you just think that you're in that state of not really caring. Where that's not the case at all. It's the case of just being very happy in the will of God, and taking it as that, as yeah, inshallah, great. If there is a chance to recover, then that can come. But at the same time, it's not something that anyone should be holding out for.
I guess what you're saying, sister, is that you want to be treated normal, just like everybody else.
Exactly. I think instead of having these comments come in, and they flood in at times, instead of having these comments, it's very, very, just come and speak to us, come and make friendships with us, come and ask us how, you know, our education's going, ask us about what we enjoy doing, because we're normal human beings. We have our interests and our you know, our likes and our dislikes and all the rest of it. We are just ordinary human beings with another thing that I find, which again I'm going to bring into this, is often you'll have the opposite as well, where people expect you to be on some pedestal religiously or even mind-wise. Like, I've had so many people say to me, "Mashallah, you're so strong, you're so amazing, you're so religious," and I'm like, Jazakallah, thank you so much for the praise, but I'm, you know, I have good and bad days like anyone else. I have moments where I feel down and moments where I'm great, and that's just what a human being is. A human being is very, very complex. You know, you can't expect any disabled person to be on that sort of high pedestal, because it's very, very unrealistic at the end of the day.
Yeah,
You
no,
know,
absolutely. I think what you're saying right now is just a lot of education for people to
yeah,
be
yeah, that's
mindful as to how to be inviting and treating people, even if they are looking different, seem to be different. Like Syed
yeah,
also mentioned, the disabilities or the issues that people have nowadays are visual and some are not. So I think that, you know, most of us that are listening today need to just like check ourselves as to how we need to approach people in a respectful manner, and also trying to understand that, you know, being over pitiful or over sort of like elaborating on one extreme to the other is not necessarily the best way forward. So that
it's
is
not.
very that's very
It's not
interesting. I'll
at
come
all.
back to you in a minute, Sister Masooma. I just want to quickly ask the Sayed, because I've had a lot of questions when I actually put the advert out with regards to generally even, it may not even apply to you, but I want to bring this as a topic as well, that there are a lot of disabilities genetically that do appear, which is common now with the new science around cousins being married. And we have got examples from our role models and the imams and prophets to say that they did marry their cousins. But in today's day and age, it is scientifically proven that it is a risk. I'm not saying it's completely wrong. You can have tests to prove that, you know, it is probably safe space to go into. But what is your thoughts on that when people are picking and choosing with regards to religion? And if you think that that is the way forward to choose your spouse and having your cousin as your spouse, is it a healthy way forward with now modern science? Say it. What is your opinion on that?
Yeah, from Islamic point of view, it's not haram to be married to cousin, but at the same time, there are narrations which encourage to expand. There is a verse of Holy Quran in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that I have created you in different tribes and nations and race, so we need to mix and know each other and understand each other and try to live together. Uh, and of course, I mean, if the cousin marriage is causing problem and scientifically it's proven, of course, Islam would discourage that as well, to not to do that. But it's not forbidden. We cannot make a general rule that all cousin marriages are haram. Because especially if the cousin marriage is the way it is practiced in some societies, cousin into cousin into cousin marriage, that is maybe not advisable. Or with the modern science, we can also, like in Iran, there is a practice that if you want to get married, even if you are not marrying a cousin, you have to go through a medical checkup before marriage, and that is for the sake of having a future healthy generation. They check, you have to have a thalassemia check, you have to have HIV check, you have to have sexually transmitted disease check, and then once you have gone through all these checks, then you are given permission to marry even a non-cousin. So it's a good practice that we bring this in our society, in a non-Iranian society where this is not a norm. we encourage our youngsters. One of the conditions, beside looking at the character and the behavior and knowledge and iman and every other thing, we should also put the conditions that okay, the marriage will not go ahead without a medical test or blood test at least, which gives the positive results for the marriage, because it's, after all, it is the matter of future generation. And besides this, there are lots of rules and regulations in Islamic teachings which may affect the child that you are going to conceive, what you eat, how you live, how you behave in the society, and especially in intimacy. There are lots of restrictions and rules and regulations that should be taken care of, when to have the intimacy, how to have the intimacy, and what to eat before intimacy, and what to eat, and how to take care of the pregnant lady while she is going through the pregnancy. So if we observe all these rules and regulations, inshallah, we will have a healthier society, both from a spiritual point of view and physical point of view.
That is so true. And I think I love when I hear you speak, Syed, because at the same time, we need to look at our Islam holistically, not just taking one or two quotes, but actually understanding many quotes, as you've discovered. As much as it is okay for us to do something in one way, it's also okay for us to expand, for example. So, and also taking the medical test and things like that, which we don't even consider when it comes to marriage, and it's hardly ever spoken about in most cases. And I think hopefully, inshallah, that the show can bring a little bit more education to us when we're looking forward in choosing when it comes to that. Back to you, Sister Masooma. What would you sort of like give advice from your personal experience with regards to people judging your situation maybe kindly unfairly, or putting you in a particular label or box and keeping you in that corner? What would be your sort of like tips on how
I think it would literally just be to keep a very, very open mind, because health is something that, like for example, Imam Ali Islam says that life is of 4 days, 2 are against you and 2 are for you. So when they're for you, don't become arrogant. When they're against you, don't become depressed. And so health is the thing that can leave us at any moment in time. Today I'm disabled, tomorrow it might be someone else. And I've seen people go through, particularly in secondary school, I've seen people go through sorts of injuries and be, for a couple of months, be in wheelchairs and be on crutches. And so, and it reminds you that, it can happen to literally anyone. And it can happen in old age, it could happen, when you're fairly young, it can happen at birth, it can happen at any time. So don't assume something just from someone's outward appearance. I mean, from my outward appearance, I've had people again assume that I'm a certain way, that I, for example, I'm very reliant, particularly from outside the community. I've had people assume that I'm very, very reliant because of being a wheelchair, and then plus being a religious person, they assume that, maybe I'm, I just have to listen to everyone and I don't get my own say in things. So, you can judge someone's situation without knowing the bigger picture, without knowing what's going on. So I would definitely advise that, read up on disability, and even if you don't have someone in your life right now who is disabled or even ill, I would say things like, generally, these questions, these things that we have, whether it be in regards to disability or regards to faith or regards to any sort of broad topic, I think take a step back and actually sit and think about it. Think how you would feel, for example, if you if you came out with a disabled child, or if one of your siblings got sick, or in that way, or anything like that, or if you had a spouse, think how you would actually truly feel and how you'd react to that situation. Because as much as we can say that we're good people, we're religious people, we'll take care of whoever we need to take care of when they're close to us. Reality is people react in all sorts of ways. People become very close-minded and very sort of ill in their judgment when they actually come across that situation. They can't handle it.
Yeah, it's funny you say that about judgment, because I think a lot of people, when we were talking earlier, were you mentioning that people just assume as well when it comes to you choosing a spouse, for example, that they assume that you would have to choose somebody of the same disability as yourself. As well as, I also want to address, what are the opportunities that you get, because you are a reciter, you do write poetry as well. Are you getting the opportunity, and do you have the community support?
Yeah, so I mean, in regards to my poetry and my recitation, I would say that opportunities are sort of few and far between, especially as a woman. I think maybe men, even disabled men, maybe they have more of an opportunity within their communities, because obviously that men, there's more spaces for them. However, for myself, I'm very fortunate that I'm able to go around the West Midlands, so I'm able to sort of, particularly the Khoja communities up in Birmingham and these kinds of communities, I'm very, very fortunate that I've been able to go and recite in their ladies programs and being able to do it that way. COVID has also been a very big blessing for myself anyway, in regards to the fact that I've somehow by the blessings of Allah, I was able to write my first muhas in English for a sister who's all the way in Manchester. So I was able to and edit those videos as well. So I was able to get work out there, which was amazing for me, because I've never had the opportunity to do that before. But I think definitely, in regards to with my own community, sadly there are opportunities and there are times where there'll be, for example, access issues. So it's hard to actually to get to the center or to get inside, due to stairs and things like that, and or when there's slight discouragement as well at times.
What do you mean by discouragement?
Discouragement in the sense. Sorry.
Is that discouragement from individuals?
Yeah, I would say it is discouragement from individuals. I'm not going to say that my disability is the main factor in that, but I think there's this kind of hindrance, or I think in general, when we have the Hussainiyas, when we have Imam Baigars, when we have mosques and centers, I've seen there's this kind of this idea that a disabled person cannot do khidmah, that cannot be of use in that way to other people, and especially for myself, recitation, poetry, all of it is service, it's khidmah to the Ahlebait. May God's peace and blessings be upon them. So there's this idea that we, for example, that we can't go out and we can't serve niyaz, or we can't necessarily for example, go up and recite. And I think it's something that we definitely need to change, because as we're getting as we're getting into these new ages of technology and of these kinds of things, I think we need to realize that we need to be more inclusive, because I mean it's pretty tragic that COVID comes, and for me that's the best opportunity to recite, because it's behind the screen and there's sort of no one to sort of say that you can't, or that we don't have the access for you, because I've even had opportunities where sort of I've been asked to recite, but it's in someone's house, for example, and I can't get there. So yeah, it's I think it's very tragic that we've come to this day and age where sort of COVID comes, and online majalis is the best way for someone like me to go out and to recite and to do what they love doing. So I think definitely we need to be more inclusive. We need to be more more supportive of people coming up, because it's a big thing. Whether it's speaking in any sort of way, and doing any sort of service, it's a big thing. It's not something that's easy. It's not something that doesn't take guts. So when you've got those guts, for example, and then you have that hindrance from your community, it is it's heartbreaking, because you put your heart and soul into recitation or into poetry or whatever it may be. So I think
that's amazing. That the fact that you've actually had more opportunity, especially during these tough times. So that's amazing for you. Inshallah, that only continues. Syed, what is your thoughts on the fact that there is kind of individual hindrance on this episode of inviting people that thinking that disability is sometimes a hindrance, or the fact that some of our centers and mosques are not actually having the access made? I mean, isn't that something that should be the norm, especially being Muslim, being at the forefront of trying to have a bit some sort of like assistance for everyone to be able to come there, whether it's as a guest or a speaker, that we don't actually consider this? What is your thoughts on that?
Yes, I mean, it is a responsibility and duty of the centers and to make the centers accommodating for the disabled and disadvantaged people who have certain disabilities in our society. Alhamdulillah, like Islamic Center of England in Maida Vale has the facilities, like you can get into the center with a wheelchair, or we have special toilets for the people who need it, who need to go into it with a wheelchair, and these kind of facilities are there. But it is not enough. I mean, like inside the hall, inside the gathering, in cases of emergencies, we have to consider a lot of adaptation. And first of all, we need to educate our community how to deal and behave with the people who need help in our society. And as I said earlier, that there are lots of disabilities that are hidden, they are not visible. We should not immediately judgmental and say that okay, this person is so and so, and we decide negatively about that person. We should give the benefit of doubt to anyone in our society.
That's
Since I was listening to the sister, maybe we should ask her, although we have a very short, limited time, we should ask her to read some of her poem as well.
If you are prepared, I did prepare you for that. I wasn't expecting it. Or are you happy to go ahead and do that, Sister Masooma?
Yeah, and I can read you a couple of lines.
Okay, yes, we do have time. That would be absolutely brilliant, actually. It would be an absolute treasure to have listening to you, as you already know that being online is quite the in thing today. So you can have this platform for your recitation as well, which would be absolutely amazing for all of us. I just want to also remind the viewers, thank you so much so far for listening, watching, tuning in, for your support. We're only here to just highlight issues in order for us to grow and develop, for us to create better awareness around our surroundings, for us to create more connections and better sort of relationships with each other, so that we can deal with situations a lot more easily. So that's the main reason why we have these shows and why we are addressing certain topics. And inshallah, we hope to continue further with having these kinds of shows and talks in order for us to actually create much more information and knowledge from different guests, and of course our scholar here always able to answer us in the best way forward, giving us everything that we require. Sister Masooma, are you ready?
Yeah, definitely, inshallah.
I was just giving you some time, so I was just waffling in order to give you time. But whenever you're ready, you go ahead. We have Angel Sister with her recitation.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. So this is a poem about Abdullah and Hussain, and so the visitation to Karbala. If only If only the world was but a speck of dust. If only the world was but a speck of dust, never would I believe that anything I've lost. As long as beside you I could sit and retell to you what your love costs, never would I leave your side. For only you are the eternal guide. Death has lied by proclaiming that you had died. If only beside you I could have died. My soul beside you still resides. Millions flock to your shrine. Millions flock to your glorious shrine, because we swear that your love is within our blood, intertwined. We do not care for our lives. We do not care for our lives, because if only we could walk in the path of the pure and divine. They tell me move on. They tell me move on with life's ever-changing motions. I say, how can I forget when life means nothing if not spent in utter devotion? My tongue is worth nothing if I'm unable to send salutations upon God's most purest creation. But how can I not shed tears? But how can I not shed tears when in my ears I still hear the cries of the children, women wailing as they're taken into prisons? Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
MashaAllah, that was absolutely beautiful. And you have written that yourself, right? Amazing.
Yeah, so all of my poetry I write myself. And I've been writing for, I think, about eight odd years or so. So
And you're
poetry
still
is
so
definitely
young, and you're still so young, mashallah. Inshallah, you have much more success. And, you know, having this platform to recite, inshallah, you have many more people, you know, turning towards you in order to give you the space to continue doing what you're doing and, you know, to spread everything, because it actually takes someone like yourself to be seen and heard on various sort of platforms and to make it the norm so that we can actually respond the way you actually described. So we need to have an open space for someone like yourself, especially that you have the talent already. So that's absolutely brilliant and amazing. Thank you so much. That was so beautiful.
I hope this encourages people like the sister, similar to sister, that they can have a successful life. They should not look at themselves negatively. They should look at the examples of like sister and be positive, and they can also help the community and the society. I'm not sure about the education of the sister. She did not introduce herself. I mean, what is she doing? What is her profession?
Yes, you're studying at the moment, aren't you? You're doing your university degree, right?
What are your aims? So, would you encourage other people who are similar to you to? I mean, we want to do something that they are encouraged and not depressed.
Yeah, definitely. I would say to anyone that, so whatever your aim is in life, whatever you want to go and get, you should definitely make the niyyah, make the intention with Allah that, you know, this is what I want to do. This is where I want to get in life, and take small steps at a time, one at a time. You know, nothing comes to you overnight. No success, whether it's big or small, no achievement comes to you overnight. It's all continue. And I think life, I mean, people ask me, you know, sort of how did you get into poetry, or where do you think I am? Where do you think you are at the moment? And I'd simply respond by at nowhere am I going to get to and say, you know, I'm completely done when it comes to poetry, that I've mastered something or I've got to somewhere. You know, life is a journey. So and particularly an art form, wherever the art form is, I think it takes your life. It doesn't take, you know, it isn't something that like you're either gonna perfect it, because you're never gonna perfect it, but you have that own you have your own satisfaction, your own satisfaction in your heart that, you know, I've done it. I've got the message across that I want to get across, and as years go on, you become better at whatever you want to do. So I think definitely just keep going, keep striving in the way of God, and keep doing what you want to do, and don't let anyone tell you that it's not achievable, because most things in this life are achievable.
That is so brilliant.
What,
And what
what kind of help is available in the community, in our society that we are living, for the people who are similar to you?
So what sort of support is available in the community, or?
Yeah,
yes,
in the community, in the through the, I mean, the government is ready and willing to help, and universities. There is no restriction for education and progress.
No, there's no restriction to education. Alhamdulillah, living in a country like this one, you get many different forms of support. You get many different grants and many different things that you can do so that you can pursue the dreams that you have, and you can get the education that you want to get. And I think that's something that's very vital, especially for disabled people. I mean, it's vital for anyone, but I think that there's also this idea that because some disabilities are so severe, that people end up not being able to get jobs, just because they can't deal with the everyday of going into work and those kinds of things. So I think I'd even suggest those people that try doing university online, or I mean now every university is online due to COVID, but do try to get into an online university, or try to obtain an education, even if you're not certain about where that's going to lead to. Or for me personally, I'm studying media because I enjoy it. I enjoy thinking about media. I enjoy sort of consuming it, partly because sort of being disabled, that things that ordinary kids did in their childhood, playing, running around, all those kinds of things, they're pretty limited. I mean, I didn't do any running around at all, but they're pretty limited when you're disabled. So actually, a lot of what your time is spent doing is watching stuff, watching TV, watching movies. And so that really sparks my interest. And the reason why I'm learning about it is, I mean, inshallah, it'd be lovely to get a career and to do something like that. But my primary aim is, Allah made it obligatory on everyone to gain some form of an education. And so that's what I'm going to set out and do. I'm going to learn, because I enjoy learning about it, and it might be a tough journey. It might not be easy, but if you go ahead with just learning, then you never know what's going to be on the other side after that, after 3 or 4 years. And even if you don't end up getting a job, that's still in itself something that's amazing to be achieved, to have gone to university and got that degree, because anyone can tell you it's not easy. Alhamdulillah, mashallah, both of you are also graduates, so I'm sure you know that much better than I do. But yeah, it's definitely, it's not easy. So I think I would suggest to anyone that, regardless of whether you're disabled or not, definitely go out and get an education on what you
thank
enjoy,
you.
what you love.
Thank you so much, Sister Masooma. Unfortunately, we have come to the end of the show, and I think you're an absolute inspiration. Thank you, Syed, especially for your question at the end. I think it was so vital, that gave Masooma an sort of opportunity to inspire people, that even in a tragic time like this, you are so refreshing, and you've given hope to others out there, regardless of even the situation that you're in, but for just generally people that are feeling kind of depressed, knowing that there is some sort of light at the end of the tunnel, because you are definitely a light yourself. And inshallah, Sister Masooma, you continue with your journey in a very successful way. And being in the media, definitely the spotlight loves you. So please continue doing what you're doing. And I urge everybody in the audience watching, or anyone that is here, just, reach out to her for her amazing talent. Thank you so much, Sister Masooma. Thank you so much, Syed, for your